Hey, I'm here with Luan Hassett. Yeah, welcome.
Thanks.
And I contacted you because I wanted to, explore your journey coming into the practice. Because as I remember it, it was last year you came on the SAS. You were pretty new to the practice, weren't you, when you jumped in?
Yeah. I had done, I think, one of those free to the public type of sessions online and then one weekend. And that was it.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I've just jumped in here a bit and just wanted to check in with you, like, how you doing right now and like what's it like to be you right now?
I'm conscious of the fact that I'm being recorded, so there's a little bit of like tension that just happened when the
Mm.
robotic Zoom message
Yeah.
told me I was being recorded. But
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, I noticed feeling like uh relaxed and like it feels good to be with you again.
Mm,
And I don't know, somehow something like a feels like a bit of a jumpy start or something. So I'm just noticing
mm,
that. Uh,
mm. Yeah, I'm noticing as well that like in a way the memory of doing it right now feels like a little distant. Um, Even though at the same time I can like remember specific moments. Um, I feel like I'm in a different phase of life to the phase of life I was in when I jumped into doing the SAS.
yeah, yeah. Well, let's see what emerges here, because like I said before we jumped on, I'm not necessarily looking. I'm more looking for us to be present together, and I just had this intuition that we could speak about it. And there was something about your journey, because from what I remember early on, it's like sailing at sea a little bit, and like where does this rope go, and like what what's going on here? But then
Yeah.
actually, I had a sense that you really could show up in your heart in the group as well, and by the end, that became pretty consistent,
Mm,
and and yeah, could go into deep waters.
yeah.
But I just want to start just like, what was it like coming into the practice the first time? Like, how was that experience? Because, like you say, you came into the training and it was all pretty new. But like, I'm wondering, like that first time you saw the practice.
Mm. It was exciting in like so yeah, first experience. So I did like a in-person weekend in Vienna, and yeah, that was really cool. That was like my tester to see if I wanted to do the SAS. Um and I think what I was like really looking for was something, I don't know, I was very intrigued. I'd watched the documentary. It seemed like really unique. I wanted something unique. And yeah, it was in person was like much easier than on Zoom. So like when I did it in person, I felt like I had a good handle on it. I felt like I could um sort of stay in myself as this
Mm.
new practice was happening and I was like figuring out the rules um and I had some like experiences that I guess just very I felt very clear after, there was a moment about like half an hour into one of the sessions where I just really felt like just very clear. Um, I don't know, almost like a moment of maybe non-duality or something like that. But just it just gave me something. I was like, this is a cool experience
Yeah.
that I don't get in ordinary life. So I felt
I
like it
think
sort of
it
proved
just
itself to me. Yeah.
so yeah, just hearing that, like, just wanted to jump in because
Yeah.
it brought up a memory. Don't know if I've shared this before that there was a time John and I were just starting to like get a bit more drawn to this, to trying this practice. And there was nothing in Europe at that point, so we were just kind of finding our own way. But we were in America actually to like hang out with people that were already doing this kind of practice. And we were in a cafe, and I was just looking at him and he was looking at me, and we were trying to be more real about our questions or and the conversation. And suddenly John just like like merged with the tree behind him. We're in this like garden cafe. And I was like, I don't know how to say this, John, but like you're not that different from the tree right now. And it's a little bit like a drug experience or something,
Yeah.
like you said, non-dual, or like like a relaxing of something on a deep level. And at that time, I was so long, I'd read spiritual books and I'd have occasional experiences in meditation retreats, but I was like, oh my God, this practice isn't only good for connection, it's like potent for these experiences.
Mm.
So I wondered like
Yeah.
what it was like for you. Was it more like a surprise, or is it you already had a sense of that kind of thing, or like,
Um, that's a good question. I don't really know if it was a surprise. I think in one way it seemed like just something really cool. Just
yeah.
like, oh yeah, okay. Like I thought this might have something interesting, and it does. So great. So the trip to Vienna the weekend wasn't a complete waste of time, uh, yeah, because I'd effectively committed myself, even though I was telling myself that I was doing my due diligence by going for like a short, like a weekend before
Yeah.
committing to a 6 month program. In reality, I was already kind of committing to that 6 month program. So yeah, it was just I just needed something to kind of say, okay, like
Yeah.
I can really sort of allow myself to just really say yes to this commitment of the SAS.
And was there something from the documentary? Because you said you were looking for something like
Mm,
live or
yeah.
new, but like what was it that captured you?
Oh, like that was yeah, that was really cool. Like I suppose at that point in my life, I felt like I lived in a world where there wasn't really a commitment in the culture to relating to another person in such a way that you were there to really see them. I kind of felt like unseen by everyone.
Mm,
Um, and there were just a bunch of moments in the documentary of people just like really like showing up, coming out with their full selves. Um, and I suppose like describing their experience and giving details of quite like idiosyncratic experiences that I had also experienced.
mhm.
Sort of like that hard to fake, like, oh, you have that thing that I have that I thought only I had,
Yeah.
sort of thing. Um, yeah, I remember being in tears for a lot of that, like just watching it on YouTube on my laptop.
Yeah, when you share that, it really takes me back to that period where I was finding this practice, but also like doing things like psychotherapy and meditation, and it was such a like, in a way, it's a, it's a kind of, there's a lot of hope, there's a lot of uncertainties, there's moments of magic, but then there's like a loneliness because it's just surprising that so many people around me are not like drawn to it, and it's like
Mm.
I just can't. It was hard to understand at the time, but then yeah, find finding this like ability or this capacity to yeah, to show up, but also to see someone, but really see someone in a way that it's obvious they feel seen. It's like it's not just trying to like cleverly paraphrase or something, and like it's like there's something really happens. And then being with you now, it's like that was the other thing. As we started to lead this practice more, I didn't know whether there would be people around the world that would have experiences like you're describing, like where they see this and it's like they recognize something. And it almost reminds me of that the X-Men archetype. And I don't know if you ever watched those movies, but it's like, these mutants they call them, but they're humans that have special powers and they're all kind of scared of them because it makes them feel weird and like it scares people around them and so it's a bit of a you know there's a fantastical element to that movie, but the archetype for me does seem like this the way human beings can have these transpersonal potentials or potentials to be intuitive or to sense deep emotions or sense the way other people in very deep ways, but they also feel kind of like an alien or like no one's really seeing them or appreciating that sensing. So then when we can come together, it's like, whoa. And it's like you hear things people say, it's like, oh, that really resonates.
Yeah,
Finally.
yeah. Yeah, I think I was in that kind of question of like, is this a superpower or is this just a mutation? Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Like,
and
that really resonates.
yeah, probably still in that question a little bit, although like maybe not with the same level of um, intensity. But but yeah, just I like at least feeling welcome to explore that. That was a big part of the attraction. Like when I then went and did the SAS, um, God, yeah, I realized then that like I actually was very protective of that identity of the mute of I guess the weirdness and the sort of
Mm.
I because that was also the identity that told me that I can go out and find something that's like circling, which no one else knows about. Like, still no one in my day-to-day life in Ireland has ever heard of it. Sorry, transformational connection. Um,
Yeah, well, for anyone that is don't doesn't know these terms, like, transformational connection grew out of circling. It's a different practice, and transformational connection's what we do now. But yeah, it
mm,
makes sense that you still have the old term. Yeah.
yeah, just the habit of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, and then I realized I came to the SAS and there were other people who had their like weird and wonderful side and weren't afraid to show it. And then I was kind of like, oh shit, I'm so boring. Like,
Yeah.
um, or or sort of actually, because some of the people there are very sophisticated. They've done a lot of work on themselves,
Mm,
probably using a bunch of different modalities. They're very fluent with terms like projection and transference and all of that.
mm,
And so then like it was flipped on its head a little bit where actually I felt a little inferior then because all of these
mm.
people were so au fait with I guess I'm running with the mutant analogy, like au fait with living in that sort of
Yeah.
um yeah, I guess just very good at loving their weirder the weirder elements of their personality.
Yeah, well, I certainly have seen that, like, well, it's been over 10 years now, so we've had lots of different kind of people on different stages of their spiritual journey coming into the training. But actually, the one thing I've seen with this practice is sometimes it's not necessarily an advantage for someone in the practice having done like 30 years of therapy, even like being a kind of, we've had like world-class kind of psychotherapist leaders who, well known, and they struggled actually to really do that practice of like, what am I actually experiencing now? And like, what are you experiencing? And like, can we meet there? Which sounds so simple, but when you're in the intensity of like connection and in a group, it's so easy to subtly go into a role.
Yeah.
And if you're so used to that, it's like, but it makes sense there you were like coming in and then it's like, oh no, this it challenged you in like a surprising way, I imagine. Like, oh, I thought I was this
Yeah.
kind of took my kind of lonely spiritual practitioner or intuitive identity away.
It did, yeah. It took another identity away as well. I thought of myself as someone who's kind of carrying the flag for authenticity. Um, and I guess I came in and people were, yeah, that was tough because like the people doing the SAS with me, a lot of them are very authentic.
Right.
Um, and that was tough actually, those first few weeks. And I think you alluded
Yeah.
to it a little bit at the beginning, but yeah, um, it was into the deep waters pretty quickly.
Mm. Yeah, that was a particularly experienced group you found yourself in. It's just
Mm,
maybe there's some intuition in that, but but it, but I remember actually reaching out to you. I think it was in the beginning, or yeah, I can't remember exactly. Maybe it was in a session, but because yeah, just from experience working with a lot of people, like sometimes something can hit you and it's like, whoa. But actually, often, well, maybe you found this as you went deeper in. It's like that first kind of, oh, I'm not experienced enough, or all these vulnerabilities actually turn out to be strengths as you go deeper.
yeah.
How was that for you? Did you get a sense of that as you went further?
Um, I I'm not sure I did, to be honest. I think as I went further, I definitely continued to struggle with the way that it brought up some of the weaknesses that I
Mm,
was starting to look at in myself, but not, but there was resistance as well.
mm,
Um, I think maybe towards at the very end, I started to, yeah. I'm just remembering this relationship that started to recur between myself and some combination of fear and shame around speaking up.
mm,
Um, and I remember that was like a um, every week it was the same sort of feeling,
mm,
and it was like a constant um, negotiation with the fear, and then giving into it a little bit, and um, I remember at one point just like I decided to lie down and just bring the laptop because obviously it was all on Zoom, just sort of kind of lie there and tremble for a bit, and then
mm,
uh, yeah, at one point then it was like grab a towel and just sort of like squeeze the fear into the towel and stuff like that. But
mm,
yeah, I'm just remembering like I one of the agendas or expectations I had coming in was that it would that the whole 6 months would make me more extroverted. Um
mm.
and yeah, that was the definitely one of the agendas I had for myself was to be kind of out there just like flaunting myself.
Yeah,
Um, and that wasn't happening. and
Mm.
I'm getting quite frozen. So
Mm.
that whole dance with fear became, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's just even thinking about it now. Oh,
Like
yeah.
you get some taste of it even now.
I think I'm just in touch with there's a like heaviness around it still.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it makes sense to me. I mean, actually, the way you describe this does feel in alignment with what I was kind of pointing to, where the thing is that kind of cliche spiritual kind of term, like uh, what's in the way is the way.
Mm,
And so at first, like what's in the way kind of comes up because everyone's being present and people are showing up, like you said, and there's like there's a dynamic kind of tension in the group, and that usually puts you in touch with what you feel is in the way. But then as you go deeper, it's like what's in the way becomes actually the key or the doorway to going deeper. So it's like this fear or shame or
mm,
heaviness. I mean, I remember there's something I, sometimes it makes me smile, the word intimacy, because it sounds so soft and it's kind of nice to say intimacy. It's almost too soft sometimes that they don't like using it because it sounds too like, nice or something. But
yeah.
the reality of going into intimacy is often very different in the beginning because it puts you in touch with really what intimacy has been with for you most of your life. And there's no, like, if you're going to really be present and present with others, you will get in touch with that. And I just remember, like, I was practicing and I was so determined because I was like, all these insights and presence I could develop, and I wanted to be more skillful and more outgoing, like you a bit as well. But I was just getting in touch with so much intensity in my body that was hard to be with, and it wasn't moving. And I was like, and actually, I was quite resistant, but I wasn't able to own that I was quite resistant to being close. My identity was that I was open, but what was being revealed is where I wasn't open. And it was so hard to come to terms with that. I mean, it's so easy to say it now, but at the time I remember it was like almost felt violent to be close with someone who I've been close with for years. It was like, it was so, but I remember a time where it just suddenly shifted and it was like, oh, I don't know if my best friend actually loves me. Like I can't say that honestly, authentically, that I know that. It's almost like there was this subtle shame belief that it kind of tolerates me somehow, or like, it's very subtle, just in there, so I don't have to know what's really there. And that opened the gate to feeling love. And then it was like, oh, like what a shift if suddenly I can feel love from people close to me, which I didn't know I couldn't before. And I thought I was all kind of cool, like in my persona, but the reality was different, and it was quite a journey to get to that. It
Mm,
sounds like you were like you had a similar kind of, yeah,
yeah.
journey.
Yeah. Yes, I did. I remember in the that initial weekend in Vienna, um, someone said something about eye contact, and it just like they just said something like, "Oh, you're doing a weird thing with your eyes," and then I picked up on that, and he said something else, and um, yeah, I just remember like getting this realization that often just the simple act of making eye contact at the time was something I felt was like almost, I mean, intrusive, but more than that, almost like like morally wrong in some way, like that I was inflicting the
Yeah,
full intimacy of myself into someone's eyes.
yeah.
Um, Yeah, and I said something about that, and the facilitator said, "Well, I've never heard anyone say that before."
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
and I definitely,
yeah,
yeah,
carry
sorry. I just, what you said about the almost the feeling of feels violent to be dropped into a fuller kind of intimacy definitely resonates. Um, I remember subsequently after finishing the SAS, um, doing a weekend in Sweden, and there was just this moment where we all it was like, okay, now we've started. I was just like, almost. It was. I suppose I could compare it to a cold shower. It was just this like feeling inside me of being more in my body than I'd consented to, and
Hmm.
like just so out of my comfort zone. Just
Hmm.
such a different feeling to lying on the couch watching the circling documentary and thinking, oh, I'd be great at that. Um, yeah.
It's so good to hear because it helps me get back in touch like with kind of my journey and it gives me more empathy again for that
Mm,
journey that people do have in the training and like what you're describing because it's in a way like I think we used to have that on the website like it's not for the faint-hearted.
mm,
But it's also like so many subtle things are going on. Like you say, if there's a subtle belief in you that you bringing yourself fully or being in full eye contact with someone is in some ways a violation. And I imagine that there could be all kinds of like more subtle beliefs in that as well about, your being. So it's
yeah.
no wonder then like the intimacy then the depth of intimacy is going to be challenging with that belief there. But then on the same side, there's also like you said, almost you were more in touch with your body than you consented to. There's also a paradoxical thing that like starts to become more clear as you practice more is there's this counterintuitive thing that sometimes actually having more boundary actually gives you more access to yourself and
Mm,
because you can say no, even though it might be something that's opening or it might be a strong experience possible, you sense more intuitively that that something's not ready for you or it's not, or there's something happening that's not quite right. Um,
yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
all these subtleties, you can have the theory for this, but being able to do it in real time, you need to be with people willing to be there so you can actually access it and then like it's not easy to in the moment, yeah, show up in these deep feelings.
Yeah. I almost feel like with that, getting that balance of sharing, but also having the boundaries and having the prerogative to withhold, like maybe just for me, there was a process of being so unreasonable in one direction or the other direction. Sort of just like just kind of like developing the feeling that, oh, I get to not share what's going on for me at the moment. Um,
Mm.
it almost feel I kind of wonder what I'm admitting to by saying I went too far in the direction of oversharing. I don't think it was more really in the context of withholding, just like to kind of go, oh, I have something vulnerable to share and I'm not going to say it. And like just it might have been something really small and there might have been a part of me saying, don't be ridiculous. You know, this is nothing compared to the thing you said last week. But at the same time, it's just kind of like telling myself that like I don't have to share and that that's
Yeah.
part of it. Not like an obligation there to be constantly like
Mm.
have the dial up max.
Well, it's amazing that because actually some people, and then there might be other approaches that do emphasize it more, but some people come in and they're like, this is a space where I be vulnerable. And I'm like, no,
Yeah,
no, no, it's not. It's a
yeah,
space where you're being present and you're following yourself on a more intuitive level and honoring yourself on a more intuitive level and starting to honor others also. And in that intention, often that means being vulnerable is easier and there's a nourishment if we can share things that are difficult to share when we feel it's right and the timing's right with it. So yeah, vulnerability is more a secondary thing.
mm,
Because if you have the pressure on yourself to be vulnerable, you're not going to track boundaries as well. Because sometimes, like you say, the timing for some reason, and sometimes it's just intuitive. You like, even though I've shared sometimes things that seem more vulnerable than this, sharing it right now doesn't seem quite right.
mm,
And then you can explore from where you are then there. And actually, I mean, I do a lot of teaching now on boundaries, and it's been a huge thing for me because I was so into connection and presence. But then what emerged as I went deeper was actually the boundaries are vital because actually, if I reveal myself to you, in a way, it's obvious that I cross a line with you if I just come in and like start telling you what your experience is, or I put pressure on you to tell me stuff that's intimate and private for you. That's an
yeah,
obvious boundary cross, but it's actually just as much a boundary cross if I just start revealing something private and intimate about my experience or my life to you, and I've not checked that you're actually willing and wanting that kind of intimacy with me or that kind of sharing.
mm,
Because we're we're kind of opening up our gate like very quickly there for someone. So
yeah,
getting these distinctions, these subtle ways of navigating intimacy, yeah, that takes some practice.
yeah. And I think that's probably uh something that like I've noticed in myself and in other people who go through a phase of maybe feeling unseen by the world is it's kind of like, okay, well, fuck you. So I'm just gonna come and I'm gonna be so vulnerable that you'll have no choice but to, see me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That way of holding it will usually, well,
Not
because
lead to
it's
good
not.
results.
Yeah, well, it's not a full trust of what's here, and it's not a listening to what's here, which isn't easy, but the closer I think we get to what's really happening, usually the easier it is to navigate. And well, in terms of just from your experience now, and it's been what, a year since you did the training, or
Yeah,
yeah,
almost a year since I finished.
yeah. Is there anything you would say to anyone who's curious about it or about to go on the journey that, like, about your how
Um,
your experience has been with the practice?
I guess like from time, from time to time, like I tell people about circling and um I, people kind of ask me questions that are like, what does it have that all of the other modalities don't have? And it's like a fun discussion to have sometimes, but I just think that I guess I can only speak for the things that sold it to me or that appealed to me about it. And one of the ones was just the access that's available to like an organic truth. Um,
Mm.
like yeah, because that was another thing going into it that I was a little bit I was figuring out was the sort of like the nature of personal truth. Like it's a term that's thrown around a lot, but you have the chance in the practice to take as much time as you need and get in touch with like what is my truth and how does it change? And how does it not be just this static thing that you enforce or that you try and defend and you're still defending that same truth like later, but maybe the truth has
Yeah.
actually changed. Um,
Yeah.
and it's just, I don't know, I think it's incredibly empowering.
Mhm.
And I haven't really, and as well, just to, because I came in being like, oh, okay, I'm going to explore my truth and also respecting the, the teeth and the sort of the intensity of truth and the like unrelentingness of it sometimes and the
Yeah.
the the pain of encountering it at times.
Yeah.
Um, just like um, yeah, I feel like it appeals to a certain kind of personality that doesn't really like being told how things are by someone else. Really, as certainly for me, like I wanted to really just get in and like really kind of experiment and really like have that chance to, okay, I brought my truth. I wasn't really sure about something, but I get to try again. And there's just this space that's there to do that. And
Mhm.
this understanding that even though there's like projection happening and there's a sense of hostility and certain things not being welcome, um, I think as you go along, it's pretty easy to see that there is that commitment there that like that and that sort of respect that if something is genuine, it will be I mean, there's no guarantees, but there will be some kind of welcome. It might not happen immediately, but there'll be,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, it sounds like the thing that's kind of touched you is like when you say organic, because
Mm.
often in the practice we're not setting up a like, okay, you be in your anger and I'll receive you or I'll be your father or there's a a certain kind of form that we
Yeah,
master, which there's definitely a place for those things.
yeah,
We're
yeah,
often just
definitely.
exploring from what's like whatever it is that's here. Could be we start with feeling a little disconnected or a little rushed from the day, but the more we pay attention to what's here, it's like people just start coming with more subtlety and depth of what they're experiencing, and then it seems like we're always kind of organically confronted with our core intimacy dilemmas. And then if you can tell your truth there, and I know what you mean, it's not like there's a guarantee that it's all going to be roses if you tell someone very truthfully that you feel very uncomfortable in their presence. Like that can be very intense for someone. But it's obvious between us all in the group and in the practice, we'll slowly but surely be able to more and more like really just be truthful in response to your truth.
Yeah,
And so it's not always obvious how these truths are meeting, but as they start to deepen together, it's like, yeah, that realness. Yeah. And I think the thing you said earlier as well, like when people start to be more and more real, even though it shows up more like how they're unique and like you can get so surprised by someone that you get a first impression, but then as you see them more, like they can really, but actually the more they show that subtlety, the more it feel there's a connection. It somehow feels so human and resonates
yeah,
with my depth.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, just kind of as you were talking there, I was really thinking about like I guess like the shift in there's that word sonder, like when you realize that other people's inner reality is as varied and as complex and as real as your own. Um and
Yeah, I
that
don't know
whole
the word. Yeah.
yeah, that whole realization, just now I can almost feel the memory of that realization kind of percolating through my system.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, it's just a different way of experiencing another person.
Yeah, well, I think for a lot of people, it's obvious that like the there's a magic about people, or it's wonderful to get to know someone on a deeper level, but to actually have the experience where you're with someone and you start to see through the way you're projecting, because everyone
Mm.
knows that it's best not to project, but that's so subtle, and that sometimes you're so in your projection, you have no idea that it's that you're inside of that. And so to have
Yes.
that in the moment experience of like coming out of that projection and suddenly it's like, oh, and once you're out of the projection, not only are you going to see more clearly and appreciate more easily what's like here, you're going to start feeling more because that projection's also limiting what you can feel. So
Mm.
it's quite an experience to have when you start to be able to really have that, like going
Yeah.
through those layers.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to talk about like I mean if you talk about someone who is thinking about doing circling is like the way that it offers you the chance to really track projections from the point at which you feel it to the point at which the contrary evidence just emerges.
Yeah.
That's like a really beautiful thing about like the way circling unfolds and the rhythm that it kind of proceeds with.
Yeah. Yeah. And because there's a lot of just like sharing a direct experience, so rather than me coming up to you and saying like, oh, I think you're in you're in a projection, and I kind of give you an analysis of that. If I just share like, uh, I feel pain when you're speaking now, or I notice I kind of zone out as we're connecting, or I feel closer right now. And if you're getting this from multiple people, you're getting this embodied feedback that helps you kind of adjust to like, and and actually there's one thing I've seen a lot with people will come in, especially people who want to grow a lot, and they'll come in and like, give me feedback, give me like I want to have I want to go deep. And it's
Yeah.
like I'm like, okay, let's see. Because often the
Mm,
thing we think we want in the beginning is
mm.
almost like the opposite of the thing we don't want to own. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and this is the thing, people are like, I want to see my blind spots. And I'm like, if it's a genuine blind spot,
Then you probably will have a lot of resistance.
exactly, and you won't even know that you're still in the blind spot when people are pointing at it. And it
Mm.
will become increasingly more obvious to people that you're struggling with this thing. But in your world, you will seriously not hear it. And you can be
So
as
true.
sincere as you think you
So true.
and
Oh,
and sometimes people are like to like, why didn't you tell me this like 4 months
yeah.
ago? And I'm like, well, if you go and watch the recordings, you'll actually see that we've been saying it a lot. But it's also just compassion because it's that's the human experience. And when you
Mm,
get to know someone and why that was a difficult blind spot for them, your heart always usually cracks open and like, of course, that would be that hard for that person. Like when you feel them in the challenges they've had that led to that projection. But it's also, yeah, it's a humbling journey. And a big part of the training is to prepare people for those challenges of like waking up to what you don't know you don't know. But there's also some it's difficult to prepare for that at the same time, other than just being in the practice, showing up.
yeah, I'm laughing because, at the beginning of this call, we were talking a little bit about struggles I had um, and I've just talked about truth and all of that and authenticity. And I guess the blind spot I didn't know I had, just thinking about it now,
Mm.
is that often I didn't really want people to be authentic with me. Like, it's sort of the like stop not caretaking me type of thing, where like, um, you come with something and everyone just totally rejects it, and you're like, okay, please hold the authentic staying in yourself and just mind me. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah. Mm.
It's powerful you say that. I actually was in a car coming back from a weekend, and I was in an intense conversation. It was with John actually, and we'd had a kind of intense interaction that we were still trying to like work out who was projecting, which is usually the sign that you both are. But uh, but then I remember like one of the difficult things for me in the beginning was a really strong longing for opening, emotional and spiritual. Like I wanted to have those experiences of connection and opening to new possibilities, new realities. I knew a lot about it, had had experiences, but then there was one time we were really intense, and then I said something which I think John caught. And when you're like, you're just really kind of showing up together, you'll say the thing that's actually a little bit of a tape record. It's like the thing you always say. And he
Yeah,
caught it. And it was something about, yeah, but I want to open or something like that. And then it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
I don't think you do. And then I could
yeah,
let it in. And suddenly I was like, my whole identity was shattered because I was adamant that I was like on this spiritual journey. And then suddenly, and around my hips, it was like a sensation all around my hips that was completely unconscious to me before, suddenly like lit up. It was like
mm,
boom, like that lit up. And then I was like, oh yeah, I'm totally afraid on this deeper level. Like I don't want to open up. And feeling that was so relieving. And
yeah,
then all that kind of energy that was trying to open me up was in contradiction to this deeper feeling, which when I felt that, I actually paradoxically felt more open. But until I could admit that I didn't, there was a strong part of me that didn't want to open, I had no chance of like really going deeper.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you said at the beginning, I don't know what we'll talk about, and I was like, I'm sure if we just follow what's present, something will come up. But
Yeah,
I want to thank you for yeah, coming here to speak about your
yeah.
experience, and feels really nice to hear like what's and sincere to hear like, what your journey's been and what drew you in and some of the challenges. And
Mm.
any last things you want to say about the course or the practice?
Um, Probably, but I can't really. Let's see.
I mean, that we've got loads of resources for people to look up the kind of practical side, but just
I don't know if I have any. I feel I kind of in a way feel like I've said it all, to be honest.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm just really like right now. I just feel like I want to go. I haven't really circled. I've done transformational connection that much recently. I'm like trying to set it up in Dublin, so now I'm just really feeling the love for the practice, and kind of
Mm.
excited to go and do more of it.
Well, I'm excited to hear about Dublin. That was where my father came from, and I've got
All
family
right.
there. And yeah, and we've got some exciting new developments. I don't know if you saw about the peer circle, peer transformational connection. So like people who come and try the practice also have a resource that's not, it's not always you have to go and pay for weekends and things, workshops. Like there's like a grassroots of practice and practitioners. But yeah, but it sounds like you're in the early stages there in Dublin. So yeah, we can definitely be in contact
Yeah.
around your plans there.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Mm.
And we have a growing community of leaders all over the world and calls we do. You can come and join those if you want the free calls for people setting up stuff in different parts of the world.
Mm.
But great to be with you again.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
thank you, yeah, for sharing.
My pleasure.
Bye now.
Bye.